Hi everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about something most people don't even realize is killing them till it already has. I want you to imagine this. You're 74, sitting in your favorite chair. The morning sun is pouring in, and your coffee is warm, but your heart is racing. Your thoughts are spinning, and you can't stop clenching your jaw. No big event caused it. It's just another day with that same buzzing tension in your chest that's been quietly building for decades. Here's the reality check. If you're still living with chronic stress after 70, you probably won't survive past 82. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love hearing what the world looks like on your end. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. I used to think stress was something only young people dealt with. Deadlines, kids, commutes, mortgages, real stress, right? But retirement doesn't erase stress. It just changes its shape. And honestly, some of the most dangerous stress is the kind that creeps in when your life should be easier. You worry about your health, your savings, your grown children who don't call enough, the friend from bridge club who's suddenly not at the table. These aren't loud worries, they're quiet, persistent, and they age you from the inside out. The funny thing is, no one warns you that sitting in a recliner can be just as stressful as running a companyist. Winning a company, especially when you feel like you've lost control. Old age wisdom says, it's not the load that breaks you, it's how you carry it. But no one teaches you how to carry loneliness, or medical bills, or that weird ache in your hip that your doctor insists is just aging. Thanks, Doc. Very helpful. There was a man in my building named Art. He was 81 and had the posture of a soldier, but his hands shook like he was cold all the time. He once told me, I think my heart's tired of hearing my brain yell at it. And I got it. Because that's what stress does, turns your body into a battleground. And the war doesn't stop just because your hair went grey. Now here's a quirky fact. Octopuses have 3 hearts. Yeah, 3. And when they swim, one of them actually stops beating. I guess even cephalopods know when to chill. We humans, though, we carry stress like it's a badge of honor even when no one's watching. There's an academic debate around stress and aging. Some say it's unavoidable and just part of the natural decline. Others argue that stress is the root cause of aging, that if we managed it better, we'd live longer, think sharper, and move smoother. Personally, I think both sides are missing something. Most people don't even realize how stressed they are. It's just become their baseline. For me, stress shows up in the way I clench my jaw during the evening news, or how I wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about a bill I already paid, or how I snap at the TV remote for not working, when really, I'm just angry that I don't feel in control of anything anymore. And yet, the world keeps telling older folks to relax, take a break, enjoy retirement. But if your nervous system has been running on high for 40 years, you don't know how to relax. You've forgotten, and worse, you feel guilty when you try. So how do we turn that around? For me, it started with noticing. When did my shoulders creep up near my ears? When did my thoughts stop being kind? When did I stop breathing like someone who believed they were safe? One of the first things I changed was how I started my mornings. I used to reach for my phone, doom scroll through news, check my blood pressure, panic about how high it was, then drink coffee and wonder why my chest felt like a drum solo. Now, I sit quietly, I breathe, I stretch, even if it's just for 90 seconds. I whisper, I'm okay right now, even if I don't quite believe it yet. And I stopped pretending stress wasn't there. I name it now, sometimes out loud. Hello again. Mortgage worry. Haven't seen you since the Clinton administration. It's silly, but it helps. And maybe that's the real secret. Stress shrinks when you stop hiding it. So if you're over 70 and feel like the world expects you to be carefree, ignore it, acknowledge the weight, lighten what you can, and for the rest, let it ride the breeze out the window. That's what it's for. I remember the day I walked out of my job for the last time. Everyone clapped, gave me a gold-colored watch, and said things like, now you can finally relax. I nodded, smiled, even cracked a joke about margaritas at noon, but inside, I felt like I'd just been erased from my own story. No one talks about what happens after the goodbye cake. One day you're needed, the next day you're just ... there. And that's when it hits you, when you realize you've been running on purpose your whole life. And now you're running on empty. At first it feels like freedom. Sleep in, watch. Daytime TV, ignore your email. But by week 2, you start wondering if you made a mistake. By month 3, you stop setting alarms. By month 6, you can't remember what day it is. And eventually, it stops feeling like retirement and starts feeling like a long, uncomfortable waiting room. Old age wisdom says, you retire from a job, not from life. That sounds inspiring until you realize no one teaches you how to keep living when the structure is gone. For decades, your schedule was set by meetings, deadlines, even traffic. But when that structure disappears, you have to become your own architect, and most people never pick up the blueprint. I tried hobbies, joined a book club, volunteered, even took a painting class, which ended with my canvas looking like a lasagna accident. The truth, none of it stuck. Because it wasn't about finding something to do, it was about finding something that mattered. Purpose doesn't mean being busy. It means waking up with intention, knowing there's a reason to make the bed, to put on socks that match, to show up. And for a while, I didn't have that. Here's a quirky fact. Sea turtles can't retract into their shells. They're exposed all the time. No hiding, no armor. That's how I felt after retirement, just floating around, unprotected, hoping I didn't get swallowed by the current. People assume you'll travel, play golf, babysit grandkids. But what if your knees hurt, you hate golf, and your grandkids live in another state? Suddenly, you're not living a golden dream, you're staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone would notice if you just stopped trying. There's an academic theory called role exit. It's the idea that when people leave a major role like a job, they go through a grieving process. Denial, anger, all that jazz. And while it's usually studied in prisoners or divorced folks, retirement's the same. You don't just lose your paycheck, you lose your title, your social circle, your identity. You lose the small affirmations that made you feel useful. One afternoon, I was at the grocery store, and I heard someone say, "Excuse me, sir." And for a split second, I stood taller, like I was about to be asked a question only I could answer. Turns out, they just wanted to know where the canned peas were. I wasn't needed, just in the way. So I started small. I wrote down one sentence every day. Today, I will. At first, it was pathetic. Today, I will check the mail. Today, I will wash one dish. But then, something shifted. I wrote, today, I will call someone I miss. And I did. Today, I will write down 3 things I'm curious about. That one made me laugh, because number 1 was, do squirrels have knees? Turns out they do. Anyway, those small actions built into something bigger. I started mentoring, again nothing official. Just chatting with younger neighbors who needed advice about things like fixing a door or how to negotiate a raise. It felt natural, useful, alive. And I realized my purpose didn't need to be just needed to be mine. Because here's the danger. When you lose your why, the how doesn't matter anymore. You stop eating well, stop exercising, stop calling people. You become a passenger in your own life. But purpose, however, small's what keeps the engine running. So, if you're out there thinking you've already done your part, that you've contributed all you can, let me just say this. Your value doesn't retire just because your job did. You still have stories, skills, presence. You still have days ahead that can be meaningful. But only if you claim them. Don't let someone else decide what the rest of your life should look like. Make it yours. They don't tell you that losing muscle mass starts before your AARP card even arrives. It sneaks up on you like a spilled drink on a hardwood floor, slow, silent, and absolutely guaranteed to leave you on your back if you're not careful. And yet, most folks over 70 treat movement like it's optional. Spoiler, it's not. I used to be pretty nimble, not Olympic level or anything, but I could still bend down to tie my shoes without sounding like a haunted accordion. That changed fast. First, I started using the wall to help me up. Then, one day, I just didn't get back up without help. And that, my friends, is the real beginning of the end. Old age wisdom says, as long as your legs work, so does your life. And it's brutally true. Weak legs aren't just inconvenient, they're deadly. Once you stop walking regularly, you lose bone density, circulation, balance, even cognitive sharpness. Yes, your brain actually starts to dim when your legs aren't moving. As if forgetting where you put your glasses wasn't annoying enough. There's something called the sitting disease. It's not an official diagnosis, but it might as well be. Too much time in a chair becomes a slow erosion of vitality. You start with shorter walks. Then you avoid stairs. Then you dread getting out of bed. And eventually, your world shrinks. To the distance between your recliner and the bathroom. A quirky fact for you. Flamingos can sleep while standing on one leg. Meanwhile, most humans over 75 struggle to balance long enough to put on socks. I'm not suggesting we compete with flamingos, but I do think it's time we stop treating walking like it's a bonus activity. It's survival, the academic term. Here is sarcopenia. That's the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. Researchers argue whether it's inevitable or preventable, but I'll tell you, the sit gets worse if you do nothing. Your thighs turn into pudding. Your spine starts curving like a question mark. Your balance, gone faster than free coffee at a senior center. Now, I'm not saying you need to start CrossFit. I'm saying walk, stand, stretch, do ankle rolls. While you watch Jeopardy, squat to pick something up, even if it's imaginary. Because if you don't use those muscles, they will leave you like your favorite diner that suddenly closes with a thanks for the memories sign. My neighbor. Early T2, retired firefighter. He's the type who wakes up and does wall push-ups before breakfast. When I asked him why, he said, because falling once costs more than 10 minutes of stretching ever will. That stuck with me. Earl isn't trying to get ripped, he's trying to stay upright. I didn't always take this seriously. I used to joke that my new exercise routine was bending over to pet the cat. Then the cat stopped jumping on my lap because I wasn't moving enough. That's when I knew. If your pet starts treating you like fragile furniture, it's time to act. I started walking every day, even when it rained. Especially when it rained. I figured, if a little water scared me, how was I going to face a slippery bathroom floor or a loose rug? The first week, I huffed like I'd run a marathon. The second week, I felt a little stronger. By the third week, I caught myself humming while I walked. Not a song, just a random melody, but it felt good. It felt alive. People say aging is about slowing down, but I think it's more about staying in motion, even if the pace changes. The point isn't how fast you move, it's that you still move. So here's my nudge to you. Get up. Right now, if you can. Walk to the kitchen and back. Stretch your arms over your head. Wiggle your toes. Wake your legs up and let them know you still need them. Because one day, you might not be able to. And I promise you those little moments of motion will matter more than any medicine bottle in your cabinet. I used to eat like I was still 40 eggs, fried in butter, bacon that could patch drywall, and enough white bread to build a carb castle. It wasn't that I didn't care about nutrition. I just thought, hey, I've made it this far. What's a donut gonna do? Well, turns out, a donut can do a lot more than just raise your blood sugar. It can set off a slow-motion chain reaction that takes years off your life. No, one tells you that your digestive system doesn't retire gracefully. It throws a tantrum. Your metabolism slows down like it's wading through molasses. Your body processes sugar like it's hosting a riot. And suddenly, your treat becomes your trigger. Old age wisdom says, your body becomes what you feed it. That's all well and good until you realize your go-to breakfast is basically a cardiovascular dare. And don't even get me started on sodium. At this age, one slice of processed ham feels like a salt lick for humans. I once asked my doctor if I could still eat steak. He said, Sheriff, it's the size of a deck of cards. I looked him dead in the eye and said, you ever seen a Texan eat a deck of cards? He did not laugh. The problem isn't just portion sizes or too much sugar. It's eating habits that never evolved. We hold on to comfort foods like they're sacred relics. Mashed potatoes, gravy, pies, casseroles, stuff that hugs your soul but chokes your arteries. And don't even try to swap them out. Cauliflower mash is a lie. You know it, I know it. A quirky fact for you. Sloths digest food so slowly it can take up to a month to fully process a meal. I read that and thought, so that's what my stomach's trying to do with that cheeseburger from 2006. Academically, there's heated debate around aging and diet. Some researchers swear by the Mediterranean diet. Others say it's all about intermittent fasting. Then there's always someone pushing kale smoothies like they're holy water. The truth. What works for a 30-year-old CrossFit instructor may not work for someone whose back aches from tying their shoes. So I started with small swaps. White bread became multigrain belly, fried eggs became poached eggs, and I actually learned to enjoy oatmeal, though I still believe anyone who says they crave it is lying for attention. I didn't cut out all the bad stuff. I'm not a monk. I just started asking, how will I feel after I eat this? That simple question stopped a lot of reckless decisions, especially at buffets. What really changed my mindset was realizing that food wasn't just fuel, it was medicine or poison, depending on what you chose. You wouldn't pour soda in a fish tank and expect the fish to thrive. Yet we do it too. Our bodies, all the time. I met a woman named Linda at at a senior center potluck. She brought a beet salad, which made everyone suspicious. But when I asked her why she cared so much about clean eating, she told me her brother died at 68 from a heart attack. He lived like his stomach had a separate life, she said, and it caught up. That stuck with me. It's not about fear. It's about respect for the body that's carried you this far. You wouldn't feed a vintage car garbage fuel, right? You'd baby it, tune it, keep it running smooth. So now I eat to feel better, not just full. I aim for color on my plate: greens, oranges, reds. I treat sugar like an X I see at the grocery store. Polite nod, keep it moving, and I drink water like it's my job. Because at this age, it kind of is. And yes, sometimes I still eat things I probably shouldn't. But I do it mindfully. I don't binge, I savor. Because if you're going to cheat death with chocolate cake, at least make it a good one. So here's the deal, you don't have to eat like a monk, but you do need to eat like someone who wants to see 90 with their teeth still intact. Choose foods that serve you. Taste still matters, but survival matters more. Your stomach may not have a voice, but trust me, it's got opinions. It hit me in the middle of a Tuesday. I was pouring coffee, the same way I always do, and I realized I hadn't spoken out loud to anyone in 3 days, not even to the cat. I laughed, but it echoed, and that's when I really noticed it. Silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. You can be surrounded by neighbors, have a phone full of contacts, and still feel utterly alone. Loneliness doesn't always look like someone sitting by a window. Sometimes, it looks like someone who stopped expecting their phone to ring. And the scary part, loneliness doesn't just hurt, emotionally it kills. Old age wisdom says, cheerful heart is good medicine. Well, what happens when your heart hasn't had company in weeks? There's a growing pile of research connecting chronic loneliness to increased risks of heart disease, stroke, and even dementia. Some experts say it's as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And yet, no one throws interventions for someone who eats lunch alone. I met a man once who said, retirement is just being laid off from your social life. It sounded like a joke, but it was the most honest sentence I'd heard in years. And I'll be real, I was one of those people who thought I didn't need anyone. I figured I'd keep myself busy, read books, maybe start whittling sticks into vaguely bird-like shapes. But human connection isn't optional, it's wired into us. Even the grumpiest among us needs a witness to their life. A quirky fact here, parrots die faster when kept alone. They need companionship to stay mentally healthy. So do we. We just hide it better. The academic debate around aging and loneliness is fierce. Some scholars argue that modern society has built a culture where aging equals isolation. Families scatter, neighborhoods become less walkable, and technology replaces face-to-face contact. Others claim it's about mindset, that those who age well are the ones who actively seek out connection. The truth, it's both. You can be proactive and still feel forgotten. After my wife passed, people dropped off casseroles, sent sympathy cards, and called for a while. Then life moved on for them, and I was left with too much quiet and a chair that didn't make sense, with only 1 cup of coffee. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't spiral. I just faded. I stopped reaching out, stopped visiting friends. I convinced myself I was fine, just taking time for myself, I'd say. But I wasn't. I was shrinking. Then one day, I bumped into my neighbor's grandson, a loud, giggly 6-year-old named Milo, who asked why I looked like a detective. I laughed, first time in days. His mum invited me to join them for board games. Later that week, and before I could overthink it, I said yes. That game night didn't fix everything, but it reminded me what I'd been missing. Noise, laughter, eye contact. Even losing at Uno felt like a win because it meant someone cared enough to beat me. Since then, I've made it a rule. One social interaction a day, even if it's small. A hello to the mailman. A call to an old friend. Joining a community garden, even if I barely touch the plants. Just showing up matters. I also stopped pretending digital connection doesn't count. I FaceTime my sister every Sunday. I send ridiculous GIFs to my niece. I even joined a Facebook group called Seniors Who Still Rock, and yes, I posted a selfie. Okay, it was blurry, but the intent was there. The point is, you can't wait for people to knock on your door. You have to open it. You have to reach out even when your pride whispers, don't bother. Because loneliness will wait. It has time, and it grows in the spaces where connection used to live. So don't let it. Be brave enough to say, hey, do you want to talk? You'd be surprised how many people are just waiting for someone else to go first. There was a time I had a Drury S, a full Drury dedicated 2 pill bottles, little orange cylinders with hard-to-read labels, lined up like a miniature army. Blood pressure, cholesterol, pain, sleep, digestion, you name it, there was a pill for it. I thought I was being responsible. Managing my health, as they say. But here's the thing. At one point, I couldn't remember which pill did what, or why I even started taking some of them. It felt less like healing, and more like a pharmaceutical juggling act. Old age wisdom says, the best doctor lives inside you. And if that's true, then I was drowning out his voice with 10 different prescriptions and a pile of insurance. Papers now. Don't get me wrong. Medication can be life-saving. I'm not about to throw shade at modern medicine. But over-medication, that's another beast. Most people don't realize how easy it is to fall into that trap, especially after 70. You trust the experts. You take the pills. But no one's really looking at the whole picture. There's an academic debate raging around this. Some call it polypharmacy, the technical term for taking 5 or more meds a day. Others argue that it's not the number, it's the interaction. Either way, the danger is real. Conflicting side effects, reduced organ function, dependency. You start treating side effects with more pills, like slapping duct tape over duct tape. One time, I told my doctor I was feeling dizzy. He added another pill. Then I felt foggy. Another pill. My legs started cramping. Guess what? Yep, another pill. It wasn't until I asked a second opinion that someone said, have you tried removing half of these instead? A quirky fact. Koalas can sleep up to 22 hours a day. They're practically professional nappers. Me, I was clocking 10 hours a night and still waking up exhausted. Turns out, one of my pills was messing with my REM sleep. I didn't need more rest. I needed fewer chemicals. There's also this strange cultural message we get as we age. If you're not on medication, you must be lying or lucky. Like popping pills is just part of the senior starter pack. But I've met 90-year-olds with better blood work than I had at 65, because they walked more and swallowed less. Eventually, I made a choice to question every single pill in that drawer. Not in a reckless way, but in a curious way. I made a list, researched side effects, asked my pharmacist real questions instead of just nodding at the receipt. I even switched doctors twice until I found someone who didn't see my age as a prescription checklist. And here's the twist. The fewer pills I took, the better I felt. My head cleared. My energy came back. Food started tasting like food again, not cardboard with a side of metallic aftertaste. Now, do I still take meds? Yes, few. Ones that I understand, that actually improve my life. But I pair them with walks, with sleep, with real food. I stopped outsourcing my health to a pharmacy. I took back some control. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable to question the professionals. But remember, they work with you, not on you. And if a doctor can't explain why you need something, in plain language, maybe you don't need it at all. So here's my advice. In case your drawer looks anything like mine used to, take inventory, not just of the pills, but of how you feel. Are you alert? Are you mobile? Do you feel alive, or just medicated? Ask questions. Ask again. Bring someone with you to appointments if your mind gets fuzzy around white coats and fluorescent lights. Because there's no magic pill for longevity. There's just awareness, honesty, and a stubborn refusal to sleepwalk through your golden years in a chemical haze. And hey, there's no shame in needing help. Just make sure it's actually helping. There's a moment usually in the quiet. Usually when no one's texting or calling when you start thinking about the finish line. Not in a morbid way, just, realistically, you start wondering how it all ends. Where, when, whether anyone will be there to notice. I know, that's heavy. But if you've made it this far with me, you've earned the honesty. For me, that moment came during a fire drill at the nursing home my cousin stayed in. I visited him weekly, watched him go from vibrant to vague in under a year. But that day, when the alarms went off, nobody rushed. Some couldn't move fast. Others just didn't care. The staff followed protocol, wheeling folks out like luggage on vacation. And I thought, is this what the end looks like? A hallway of beeping, hearts, low ceilings, and polite nods from strangers. Old age wisdom says, how you live your last decade is how you'll be remembered. But what if your last decade is defined by forms, pills, and being called dear by someone half your age who doesn't know your last name? That thought haunted me. There's this thing no one says out loud. Many people don't live past 82. Not because of disease, but because they give up. Not dramatically, quietly. They stop pushing themselves, stop engaging. They fade like a TV left on in an empty room. Academically, gerontologists call this disengagement theory, the idea that people naturally withdraw as they age. But others argue the opposite, that society pulls back from them, that we shrink people down to their needs, not their identities. And when you're treated like a task instead of a person, you stop feeling like someone worth showing up for. I'll tell you what I think. You die when you stop being curious. Curiosity kept me alive long after energy and ambition took a vacation. I wanted to know what happened in the next episode, the next sunrise, the next phone call. That's it. Just the next. A quirky fact for this final leg. Jellyfish are biologically immortal. Some species can revert back to their youthful state over and over. Doesn't mean they're living well, just that they keep floating. And I thought, that's not the goal. The goal isn't just survival, it's significance. I don't want to live forever, but I do want to live until the very end. So I made some promises to myself. First, I wouldn't spend my last decade in default mode. I'd challenge my brain crosswords, chess, even terrible attempts at learning French. Second, I'd surround myself with laughter. Not forced cheerfulness, Real laughter, the kind that comes from conversations about embarrassing stories and weird dreams. I'd watch comedies, call old friends, babysit the kind of kids who say outrageous things like, "Do trees get cold?" Third, I'd say no to isolation, even when it's easier to stay in. Even when the phone feels heavy, I'd keep showing up, because presence is half the battle. And last, I'd stop waiting for permission to live fully. No one hands you a permission slip at 80 saying, it's okay to be joyful. You have to write your own, so if you're asking, why don't people live past 82? Maybe it's not always biology. Maybe it's neglect. Neglect of connection, of curiosity, of control. Maybe people stop because they think it's over when it isn't. But you're still here, so breathe in. Wiggle your fingers. Think of someone you love. Laugh at something dumb. Ask a new question. Eat the damn chocolate. And remember, you're not done yet. We've talked a lot tonight about purpose, movement, food, connection, awareness, and that invisible line we all eventually face. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to. You are still a story in progress. No matter your aches, your regrets, or your age, soften your thoughts, breathe slower, and let peace settle around your shoulders like a warm shawl. You made it through another night, and that matters. You're not alone, not forgotten, and definitely not finished. Now go rest. Tomorrow is waiting, and so is your next chapter. Good night.